So thank you all for coming out tonight and listening to me. And these aren't notes, they're just pointers, just to be clear. See, people who were listening to Shayla got that joke. So first of all, my name's Irfan, not Iffran, as per the website. But you can call me Iffy, and that's Iffy by name, not by nature. But I'll let you be the judge of that. And I'm going to be talking about a presentation, and it's kind of like my life, and it's called Finding an Opportunity in Everything. And when I was first putting together this presentation, I was thinking about how can I show people how to find the opportunity in everything by using my personal life experiences, because Inspired is all about talking about you, I know, really egotistical, and talking about how what you've been through or what's happened to you can inspire other people. And I did this talk, I think 2 years ago, Shay?
Yeah, around 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I think there's about 50 or 60 people here. Have any of you heard this before? No? Okay. Those people didn't come back. I wonder why that was. Anyway, you guys are locked in for the duration. But I thought, what's the best way of doing this? And the best way I thought of doing this is by doing a timeline of my life and showing you my peaks and my troughs in my life and how those peaks and troughs help me find an opportunity in my career and develop further. So I'd like to call upon my two lovely assistants, Jenna and Yasmin. Just give me a second. Yeah. You need to grab that. Oh, you need to grab that. This was a lot shorter last time, but it's been 2 years, so, you know, lots happened, yeah. And just to be clear, ladies, that's my girlfriend, so if you were thinking about coming up and talk to me later and give me a number, sorry, I'm taken, but, you know, there you go. So anyway, let me kick off with my timeline. So I was born in 1978, boom, and that is pretty awesome, and I'm sure my parents thought that at the time, and boy, were they wrong. But then things kind of went a bit downhill because I went to primary school, and actually I hated primary school. I got bullied a lot. I experienced a lot of racism. You know, I had people calling me Iffran as opposed to Irfan, stuff like that. And it was just a really hard time. And I didn't just get it from kids, I got it from teachers as well. I have school reports from my primary school days. People are saying things like, you will amount to nothing if you don't change who you are, and, you know, stuff like that. Basically saying you're not going to go anywhere in life. And so that was a really tough time. And this is like a really low point in my life. And I had some really bad thoughts there about what I should do. And this is when I was like 8, 12, stuff like that. And I remember leaving my primary school and leaving the gates and thinking, I never have to come back here. This is amazing. I never have to see that place again. And actually that was a really high point. Can you imagine that? Being that young, being a 12-year-old kid thinking, I'm really glad to leave primary school. I don't want to see this place ever again. But anyway, I carried on, and I went to secondary school, and the thing is that the secondary school I went to, some of the primary school kids came with them. So it was still a bit of a shit time, but it was a little bit better. But a great thing is I actually passed my GCSEs, which is I know everyone thinks, oh, so what? But for me, that was a really big deal, because everybody told me that I was going to amount to nothing and I wasn't going to go very far. And so I passed my GCSEs and I went on to do A-levels. I did maths, physics, chemistry. Yeah? And there's a really interesting story about that. I remember bumping into somebody from my past or somebody who met me. And they actually said to me, they go, oh, so what are you doing with yourself? And I said, oh, I'm doing my A-levels. And literally, they almost fell off their chair. They were like, really? I went, yeah. They were like, no way. They go, I thought you like quit school and got a job. And I went, no. I got my A-level. I'm doing maths, physics, chemistry. At which point they had a heart attack. And so at that point, I kind of proved quite a few people wrong. Or so I thought I did. Because actually, during my A-levels, I also met lots of girls. Yeah, we all know how that one turned out. So I basically took a massive high to a massive drop because I failed my A levels and got 2 N's and an E. I blame the women personally, but it was that point in my life where I went, shit, actually, maybe everybody was right. Maybe I am a failure. Maybe I'm not supposed to do well. Maybe I should just accept my fate. But I retook my A-levels. And actually, it was the best time. It was the best educational experience I had, retaking my A-levels. And I went from 2 N's and an E to 3 B's. So I did a massive jump. And I realized that, hey, you know what? Even if you fail, you can still pick yourself back up and try again. And I went on to university, and university is an amazing experience. It goes up and down because there's more girls involved there. But I remember being there thinking, how did I get here? How did I actually get here? And I couldn't really work it out. And what was phenomenal is not only did I get there, but I then went on to do Camp America, where I worked with lots of young people and inspired them. I then went on and studied in the US at Iowa State University, which I never thought would happen. So I came from down here being told I can't do anything, to being here, overseas and killing it. And then, after I graduated with a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in engineering, I got to work, and I'll just read out what I've written in my pointers, not notes, they're pointers. It says, work, real world, oh fuck. And yeah, that was quite an interesting time because I was trying to get a grad job and I couldn't get one. And, I kind of thought, again, I had that thought of, hey, maybe everybody was right, maybe I just fooled myself. So I went for all these general jobs. I actually worked for Camp America full-time for a little while. That was quite cool. And then I got my first graduate job. And what was quite interesting about this is I couldn't have got that unless I'd done all of that stuff. So unless I did all those general jobs in sales and all sorts of bits and pieces, I wouldn't have actually got that grad job. And I wouldn't have got that job. And this is quite an important thing that I'm going to share with people. Ask a question. Push the envelope. Because they actually told me at HSBC that I failed the recruitment process. And I went back and said, well, why did I fail? And they said, oh, sorry, we got it wrong. Actually, you're in. So don't ever be scared to push the envelope and ask the question. But this carries on because while I was at HSBC, I really screwed up. I made a big mistake there. I'm not going to go into what it was. But I had a mentor that I met up with, and he said, listen, stop trying to be a graduate and just try and be an employee. Be a good employee. And I learned some valuable lessons there. And I'm going to go into all of these things as I go through the presentation. But even though I screwed up, I then eventually got promoted. And like all jobs, you kind of go along and you kind of have enough of it and you think, yeah, I want to get paid better. And then I got a better job and got more money and realized that money isn't everything because I actually hated the job, but I really liked the money. So I was just working for my weekend and I thought, now I'm sounding like all the other people out there. But then that went on. And then when I was doing this presentation last time, 2 years ago, I was in my element. I had the best job, had great people, I had good money. I was flying. But this is what's interesting. Even when you're at that point, you start to normalize and you go, well, what else is there? So I'm in a really funny place at the moment, which is where do I go next? But I have the options. Now you're probably thinking, okay, so what? You sound like a pretty bog standard person, and yeah, big deal. So you've had some ups and downs. What's the deal here? Well, here's the interesting thing. Have you ever heard the theory of relativity? Yeah, Einstein's theory of relativity. So, Einstein's theory of relativity is this: when you touch a hot stove for a second, it feels like an hour. And when you talk to a beautiful girl for an hour, it feels like a second. And that's what life is. It's relative. So I'm going to ask you to flip the chart. Get it? Flip chart. And life is relative. Because what's really interesting about this is all those peaks, all those troughs suddenly become peaks. So, yeah, I got bullied at school, but I realized that you can always deal with tough people. And actually the people that are going to push you around and make you feel like you're inadequate are usually quite scared of their own inadequacies. It took me a long time to realize that, but I realize it now. And you shouldn't be scared to be who you are, because I wasn't scared to be who I was. That's why I got pushed around, because I was like, no, this is who I am. And actually I went further because of that, because that taught me about how to deal with tough people in the workplace. You know, when I failed my A-levels, I learned that, hey, you're going to fail in life. And I'd rather learn it there than down there. I had a really interesting conversation with my sister, who does actuarial sciences, and she said, I met a girl who failed her actuarial exams, and she started crying. And she said, you know what the problem was? She'd never dealt with failure before. So I'm glad I learned that there, because it now means whenever I fall down, I always go, yeah, but I fell down here, and from nothing I came to something. So, hey, what's the problem? You know, when I screwed up at HSBC, I realized that you got to be humble sometimes, because you don't know it all. Even if you think you do, you don't. And you got to listen to the people around you. You don't want to be that wanker who goes, yeah, no, I'm listening to you, but I know what I need to do. You know the one that you speak to and you go, no, I'm giving you some good advice, and they go, no, I'm going to do what I want. And you think, all right, mate, well, I'm telling you for your own advice. That's actually really important. I learned that. And I also realized that, you know, actually when I was trying to find a job in my first grad job, I realized that actually you got to sometimes you got to just go for things, even though they make no sense sometimes, just go for them. Because by going for them, you actually create more opportunities. Because what happens is you take a step here, and then suddenly it creates a branch of 5 or 10 different things. And then you take a step here, and then you create a branch of 15 things. And you take a step here, and then you take a branch of 20 things. And before you know it, you've created a network, you've created friends. I hated my job at Santander. It was a shit job. But guess what? Because I took that opportunity, I met somebody there that got me my next job, which was phenomenal and amazing. And me and him are still good friends to this day. And he's good friends with my boss, and I'm good friends with my boss as a result of that. And that was because I took that opportunity. So I'm going to leave you with one final message, which is this. I'm sharing with you today because I hope my timeline has helped you realize your timeline. And I hope your timeline helps you find opportunities in what you find. And because I believe that you have an opportunity in all of you. Thanks a lot for listening. Iffran Nazar.